What's going on, guys? It's your boy J2ATV and I'm back with another banger. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to cut to the chase. I don't want to waste too much time on the intro. We're going to be talking about a subject that really sits heavy with me as an anime fan and just a fan of art in general. When it comes to Dragon Ball Z versus Super, which had the best anime style and why, I'm going to be sharing some personal opinions that I have based off of my experience growing up watching the original Dragon Ball Z on Funimation channel and kind of consuming it before the modern internet era, and then comparing that to watching Super through college as it was on and kind of the impact that that's had on some of the younger people that I know. I have a young nephew, he's 11 years old, and he was kind of introduced to Super first and then went back and watched the original Dragon Ball Z that I had watched. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a long time, so I'm really happy to be able to bring it to the channel. If you guys could just drop a quick sub and a like on the video, it does help with the YouTube algorithm. We're trying to get to 5K before the end of the year if we can. We got 4 months to do it. With you guys' help, I think we can get close. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, I do want to preface this video with the fact that I don't hate Super, and I don't think that it's bad. It's just bad in comparison to the original Dragon Ball Z. I just want to make that clear. Dragon Ball Z is more than just an anime. It's a cultural phenomenon that has influenced generations upon generations of fans. I mean, the first time I watched Dragon Ball Z, I was about 6 years old, and my older brother showed it to me, and he had watched it in the early 90s. You know, and now my nephew, when I first showed it to him, he was 6, and he's about 10 years younger than me. So that just goes to show you, like, again, generations of fans have loved Dragon Ball Z. And while Dragon Ball Super brought the series back into the spotlight with new story arcs, some cool new transformations, like we get Ultra Instinct and Perfected Ultra Instinct, Goku Black. There's something about the original Dragon Ball Z animation that just hits different. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down why the animation in the original Dragon Ball Z is often considered better than that of Super. The first thing we've got to look at is the art style and animation style. The original Dragon Ball Z was animated during a time when hand-drawn animation was the norm. You would essentially have one main artist or a small group of artists go frame for frame and draw up each scene that they had. They're like directly taking it from the manga almost, and then, you know, they would have to draw every single frame. So that gritty, raw look at the characters combined with some of the detailed backgrounds, it really gave the show a unique aesthetic that, you know, I kind of fell in love with. Each and every single frame felt like its own piece of art. It had bold lines, there was a lot of darkness and shadows, and it kind of just had a really ominous and more serious vibe to it. You know, it had some vibrant colors, and each character's expressions and just how they were drawn up almost perfectly captured the intense emotions of each battle. On the other hand, when you look at Super, the animation, it leans heavily on digital techniques, and they're trying to cut corners and save money. A lot of modern media is kind of taking this same kind of approach, and it just doesn't look as good. It has a more clean, polished look to it, but it almost lacks the same level of detail and personality that the hand-drawn look just has. The characters occasionally look too smooth or even flat and boring, and sometimes they add a little bit too much color to it. Like, for example, you can look at this picture of Trunks. It just doesn't have the same detail. It doesn't look like a real character. It looks too cartoony, almost like a Nickelodeon cartoon or something. And this is especially bad during fast-paced scenes. It looks worse. And so while Super has its moments, it definitely has, you know, some visual things that I enjoyed. A lot of the time it feels like it's missing that raw energy that Dragon Ball Z's animation style just had, and made it one of the most memorable and influential animes of all time. All right, moving on. Next, we got to talk about the animation quality itself. Not as much the style of it and how much I like or dislike, but the actual animation quality, like the studio production itself. So Dragon Ball Z was known for its fluid animation during key battles. You know, a lot of people complain about it and say that there was repetitiveness to just kind of some of the same, like the choreography. But, you know, the fight choreography was intense. It was fast-paced. Movements had impactful blows that almost made you feel every hit. There's this one scene in Dragon Ball Z Budokai games where kind of you break the guard and like do an underpunch, and I still do that to like my nephew and my little brother to this day. The animators took their time to ensure that each punch, each kick, and every single blast had weight and significance, and it made the battles feel epic and kind of larger than life. As a little kid watching it, I wanted to be those characters, and that's just not something that I feel for Super. I'm gonna get into it and talk a little bit about nostalgia, but again, with nostalgia, I understand being a little kid and watching some of this stuff definitely has an effect, whereas with Super, I was in college, a young adult, and so it doesn't have the same impact on me. But I don't think that that's a fair thing to say when it comes to this argument specifically. Again, while Super certainly delivered on some incredible fights and had some memorable moments like Jiren and the Tournament of Power and Beerus vs Goku and some other things, it definitely also has its fair share of animation inconsistencies. When we look at some episodes, like especially early on in the series, it suffered from rushed production. It led to some awkward moments of off-model characters. Of course, there's this famous picture right here. And again, just the reliance on digital effects, it sometimes makes the fights feel less impactful, and it kind of lacks the energy that defined DBZ's most iconic battles. Another element that kind of sets the original DBZ animation apart is atmosphere and tone. We got to talk about the atmosphere and the tone. The animators masterfully use shading, lighting, and other colors to create tension and drama. You know, whether we look to Goku's first transformation into a Super Saiyan on Namek, or the eerie calm before the Cell games, DBZ just had a way of building suspense through its visual style, and the darker, more serious tone of the show was reflected in the animation, and it made the stakes feel a lot higher and the threats feel real. Like, I used to be stressed out watching it when I was a little kid. Whereas with Super, Dragon Ball Super, it embraces a more bright color palette. Sometimes it clashes with the tone of the story. Dragon Ball Z is supposed to be a story about warriors and battle. The lighter atmosphere, it kind of worked well with certain arcs, but when you look towards the Tournament of Power, it doesn't always capture that same intensity or a sense of danger that DBZ had. Watching it almost seems like entertainment, or that they're fighting exhibition than the real thing. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone to a concert and you've seen them doing like a mic check before. They're kind of talking, it's more joyful, it's not as serious, versus when you go on the actual day of the concert, everything is serious, there's a set, everyone's following procedure, and you know, you have to perform, and there's the pressure of performance because you have live fans that are actually there. That is what I like in DBZ Super to the original. The mood and the tension that you experienced through each of the original arcs in DBZ was felt also through the animation, and that's one of the reasons that made it so iconic in my opinion. I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention music. Music plays such a huge part when it comes to any media in general, and it kind of also works along with the visuals to set the tone for certain scenes or interactions between characters. And the Bruce Faulkner score, which ran on Funimation, the late night version of Cartoon Network, which is where I originally watched Dragon Ball Z, is just one of the best, in my opinion, scores that you could have to match the vibe of the anime. Also, I think a nice touch is you see in some of the Dragon Ball Z movies, they put rock music in, which I think fits well, but again, that's probably my American bias. Again, even the Faulkner score might be a bias, and it's very controversial. A lot of people agree with what I'm saying, a lot of people disagree. I'll be curious to see what you guys think in the comments, but again, I think that it makes it not unwatchable, but it's very hard for me to watch without the Bruce Faulkner score. Essentially, what Dragon Ball Z Kai tried to do is take the content and make it a little bit more accurate to the manga and cut out a bunch of the filler, and also keep the English dialogue but put in the original Japanese score. I'm just not a fan of the Japanese score whatsoever. I'm not a fan of the original Japanese voice for Dragon Ball Z either. I'm a huge fan of Japanese sub for anime in general. I just want to make that clear. I almost never watch anime in English, but I will make the exception that Dragon Ball Z is the only anime that I prefer the English dub over the sub. Goku and Gohan having the female voice actors and everything just sounds almost satirical, and it takes away the serious tonality of it that you get with the English voice acting, in my opinion. Again, I know this is going to be highly controversial, but that's just my opinion. And when you look at Super, I watched Super in both the dub and the sub, and you get the original Japanese score that they have there. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't think that it fits the vibe for a fighting type show, and that, again, that's just my opinion. I would have preferred them have something similar to like a Faulkner score, and maybe that would have made me like it even better. So for Super, again, I just want to make it clear I'm not really a fan. I didn't like the soundtrack that they had for it. I think the animation was subpar, and even some of the storyline just wasn't up to what I expect. You have the whole finale, and purpose of it is you're fighting for literally the state of your universe is in the balance for these battles, and they're joking around, it's all lighthearted, and at the end everyone else that perished previously that was knocked out of the tournament comes back to life. It kind of made it all for naught. And again, I understand that you have the Dragon Balls that brought people back to life in the original Dragon Ball Z, but the fights were so intense and things mattered. You had that sense of urgency that even when someone died and you assumed that they would be coming back, it still held the weight and you were sad to see them go. I guess my last point would just be about nostalgia. Of course, we can't ignore the nostalgia factor. For many fans, including myself, Dragon Ball Z was our introduction to anime as a whole. Again, I was 6 years old, little boy, when my older brother introduced me to these crazy fighting yellow-haired spiky guys, and I just fell in love with anime ever since that day. And its animation style is forever etched into my mind. The hand-drawn attention to detail, and dark, serious atmosphere all combined to create a sense of nostalgia that's just really hard to replicate in other anime and media in general. While Dragon Ball Super has brought the series into the modern era, again, my nephew really enjoys it, and I'm glad that a whole new generation of kids is able to maybe get that same feel that I got from DBZ. But, you know, the original animation in the original Dragon Ball Z just continues to resonate with longtime fans and even some of the newer fans to this very day. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching my video. I'm curious to see what you guys think in the comments. Do you prefer the animation style of Super or the original Dragon Ball Z? I would also like to hear why you guys think that instead of just saying one or the other. And also if you agreed or disagreed with some of the takes that I had in this video. I've got some more Avatar content headed you guys' way as always. Thank you guys so much for watching me and supporting the channel. Until next time, J2A TV out of here. I'll see you guys in the next video. Too many times I feel like I'm out of love. Is you really rocking with me or is you a dub? I ain't playing with you, don't you treat me like a scrub. You could be my queen, is you with it or not?